When me and my sister were setting the show up, I was like, well, it's fine. Just, we'll get a music stand. And I was like, because everybody's going to print it out. Oops. All right, here we go. Hope it's not bad. This is called Ham and Bucket. I resent LA as a city. Not in the sense that I think it's a bad city, but I hate that it gets mentioned in the same breath as New York City. This is a personal belief, and I know it's unfair to LA. LA never asked for this treatment, and why compare in the first place, right? However, I'm a New Jersey native. Culturally, I don't bring much to the table. So I desperately cling to New York City for any cultural relevancy and identity. As a result, I talk shit about anyone who or anything that makes New York City look bad. Brings me to my main point. LA is a second-tier city. If you need convincing that LA is a second-tier city, try this thought exercise, which I considered editing out. But fuck it, we ball. It's 9/11 round 2. But this time you need to decide where to crash the plane in LA. Where will you choose? The Planet Fitness on La Brea? A cool-looking building downtown with nobody inside? Maybe a big sign on a hill. You'll quickly find there's no real landmarks whose destruction would make a real dent in the psyche of the nation. That is second-tier city shit. Also, for anyone visiting, Disneyland is in Anaheim, which is not LA. We wouldn't never forget, and instead we would. Do you guys remember when that plane hit that big minion thing? That was so random. I, however, have a rent-controlled one-bedroom apartment for $1,000 a month in Silver Lake. So I will die in LA. That's right. That's right. Anybody else can get those feelings out right now. They will remove my 103-year-old skeleton from my Casper mattress 4 years after my death when my bank's autopay finally stops. By then, the water wars will have consumed most of LA, and they will use my bones for a soup, nourishing the few influencers who have survived on the returns from investing their Fabletics fortune in sand crypto. My youngest neighbor keeps seeing a ghost. I love this neighbor. He grew up in a housing project down the street from me in New Jersey, so we have a local connection. He brings this ghost up in the same tone I bring up TV shows. Hey, did you see that ghost in the alley? Oh, no, not yet. Is it good? I'll say. It's a young girl. And I'll say, huh? He'll say, yup. I'll say, wow. He'll say, yeah. Well, the ghost I don't see is concerning because I don't see it. My biggest concern about my housing is that my landlords are Gen Z, which as a millennial is a tough pill to swallow. I'm also concerned because my Gen Z landlords are trying to evict me and my 9 neighbors from the apartments that we live in. Their names are Aviel Golbari and Andrew Gerbion. Yeah, that's it. But to conceal their identity, I'll call them Bucket and Ham. My immediate neighborhood is nice, in the way an airport terminal is nice. It has a Shake Shack, a Sweet Green, $15 bagels with a line, a store called Happy Socks, makeup places that have the same tile and lighting as duty-free stores, and a whole lot of people who look vaguely stressed, confused, and bored, like they're waiting for something to begin. Everyone online loves it, and the general feeling I get is, I guess the problem is me. My tightly packed bungalows on Sanborn Avenue are one of the last holdouts of what the neighborhood used to look like before it became identical boxy white condos that sell for millions. Our bungalows feature a sewage pipe that often breaks in the middle walkway, sending brown raw sewage cascading down a set of 50 lopsided stairs. One time I found a baby wipe where I parked my car. My walls violently shake if you turn on the hot water too quickly, and there's something living in them next to my bed. I can hear it scratch at night. I had that at my place too, my sister said. I just got afraid it would eventually break through to the other side one night, you know? I didn't, and now it worries me. My neighbors who have lived there forever have told me it's always been this way. The floorboards used to be plywood, and there's a lot of guys, like guys who, you know? Like a guy who used to sacrifice chickens and spread their blood outside my apartment's door. You know, a guy who drilled a hole through the wall to spy on my neighbor. A guy who made explosives for movies in his apartment, who wouldn't have been a guy, but was also a guy who listened to porn loudly with the windows open. I hope to be a guy who saved thousands using this small trick that landlords hate. paying your rent on time, and being good at following rules. The first time I saw Bucket and Ham was outside of my front door. I was suspicious because they looked like high school seniors. They were sunburnt, sweaty, and slightly out of breath. One of their dress shirts was noticeably too big, making his small frame look both pathetic and endearing. Their aesthetic was giving kids who would absolutely tank your group project in high school. They spoke quickly and anxiously, like their parents were making them practice ordering at a restaurant. What's up? Just to let you know, we're your new building owners, and we're using this, the Ellis Act to whatever. You'll need to move because we're building 40 units of affordable housing. I said, oh, for sure. Thank you so much. Do you guys need anything? They didn't. When I panic, I get polite. My neighbors all met, except for one who had a restraining order on the other for spitting an orange at her one time. I saw the video evidence, and I think it's inconclusive. We all decided we wouldn't move. We were split on whether or not to believe that they were building 40 units on such a small lot. However, everyone agreed that the kids seemed kind of dumb. Kids can be smart, I just don't think they're that type of kids, said one of my neighbors, everyone nodding along. Everyone hated them, but I couldn't help that I sort of liked them. This is a flaw in me. I have a sweet spot for people who are clearly unqualified for the job they're doing. One time I had a horrible waiter, and I pulled her aside to say she was doing great. That's called lying. But I can't help it. Instead of rage, I felt like their camp counselor. Kind of keeping an eye on them, but keeping my distance so I don't seem like an authority figure. Over the next months, Bucket and Ham would show up in their Range Rover, knock on our doors, try to bond with us, and then tell us we had to move because this was the week they were demolishing the apartments. Their plan for the apartments always changed. This week it was affordable housing, then it was luxury condos. Then, oops, we never said condos. It's always been affordable housing. What are you talking about, Evan? Stop bringing up the condos. We all laughed when we learned the LLC they had created was called the Sanborn Boys. But I felt bad for my boys. This was a tough first group to try to evict. I figured I would be the hardest to evict. I was contracting in tech. I'm cheap to a fault, and I will tank my well-being in order to prove someone wrong. My neighbor would be the next hardest to evict. I just didn't think he'd ever leave. He was always gardening at night and a headlamp, and construction sounds were always coming from his apartment. One night after I returned to Saw, he told me, "You can do anything to these apartments, man. I mean anything. They won't ever know." Bucket and Ham started to call every evening, and they showed up on my doorstep more frequently. We should get coffee sometime. Talk about cool new apartments you could move into. Not me, but good luck, you two, I'd say. I was surprised that he thought I believed that he drank coffee. Bucket and Ham got my neighbor who worked at Trader Joe's to leave first. They offered her cash to leave, and she wanted to move closer to work, so she left. Ham started leaving fake eviction papers that sent us scrambling to lawyers. Bucket asked for my email address, and when I told him it was evanwalter24@, he cut me off and said, 24 for Kobe, am I right? Yeah, I said. He wasn't right, but it was such a desperate attempt to relate, I automatically liked it. He used that email address to email me fake plans to demolish my apartment. They offered a costume creator from Universal more cash, and he left next. Piles of trash were left all around the property, and they cut down a lot of our trees. This stage of polite broiness lasted for a while, and then was replaced with a phase of frustration. After spending $250 to talk to a lawyer with fascinating eyebrows over Zoom, I requested everything from the boys to be sent to me in writing. When I told Bucket, he said, "Oh my God, come on, man, just let me talk to you in person." They evicted a sublet, and then I woke up one morning to see they had boarded up his windows. Apparently he had a court date, which would have let him keep the place, but because he didn't show up, they could legally lock him out. I started blocking Ham's calls, which hurt me, and he used a different number to get through. I called the city, and there wasn't much I could do to stop them, but I didn't really have the energy anyway. The tech org I was contracting for shut down. And I was working freelance directing and writing ads, a famously stable, consistent, and fun job. Around the same time, we started to notice a light in the sub-basement of It's a small space you can access through a 3-foot door, and it has a dirt floor. You can squat and maybe take a bike in and out of there. We knew he had been somehow sneaking into his boarded-up apartment to retake some of his belongings inside during the night, but this light was on for a lot of the night. You think he's, living under there? One of my neighbors asked, and I was like, no way. Well, Come a guy who built a secret hatch into his apartment from underneath. To live under your apartment is sort of genius. First off, if you were accused of sneaking into your boarded up apartment, the last place anyone would expect you to be is under that apartment. I imagine the conversation might have with the city officials when they found him down there with the headlamp. You see, legally, I don't need to leave. Down isn't even regulated by the city. Up is, but down is unlimited. I was making ads for Google, but I was finding it hard to get enough hours freelancing and was digging into my savings. That's what they're there for, right? Bucket and Ham started to do some more demo on some units, and we called the city to pull their permits. The lights remained on below the hatch. The lights remained on below the apartment at nights, and I realized that if had snuck some furniture into the down from the hatch into his apartment, he actually could be living pretty well. I had the same floorboards as him, so if stuff got rough, I could also probably figure out a way to get my furniture below my apartment if I ever wanted to. I still hadn't received a new job, and the pressure to move was growing stronger. Demolition crews showed up in bright neon shirts and blew through walls next to the windows where I was taking interviews and doing writing meetings. I bought expensive noise-canceling headphones. I wanted to move, but every night I would come home and I would see that light on. Do you know that there's certain plants that don't need sunlight? I mean, if you put some of those down, that would make it feel a little more like up. You could even build another story further down, and your shower pressure would be insane. In an ironic twist of fate, not wanting to dip into some retirement savings I had, I started to work demolition for cash. I'm leaving my bright neon shirt at 7 a.m. to demolish a rich lady's bathroom in Hancock Park and be greeted by the confused faces of a demo crew arriving at my apartment to demolish them. It felt like we should be allowed to trade jobs and cut down on commute time. I started to tear through my savings, and they tried again to start demolition. I called the parking department on a dump truck they parked on the sidewalk. The light was still on. He was a hero. I started to repeat the phrase to myself, I've always got down, when I would think about living precariously financially in Los Angeles. Bulldoze, wildfire, earthquakes, I always have down, and they can't take that away. That's a lot of what living in LA feels like. You're kind of just building contingency plans for when things don't go quite right. When I finally get hit by a bus and I need to pay out my $15,000 deductible, where can I stay? For most people, it's a car, but I'm 6 feet. I'm basically 6 feet. And I have a Honda Fit, so there's got to be another option. That's what was so inspiring about the man underneath the apartment. Take away our roof, take away our utilities, we can go underground, kind of scraping at the floorboards beneath whatever luxury white box you erect. We'll be there, down, below you. I tried to do demolition again, and I talked to the city agent who stopped the work again. Bucket and Ham's dad came to the work site and audibly said, "Who keeps calling the city?" My sweet boys in tow behind their bald father, an expression of "Dad, stop," visible on their face. But fuck them. I hate those little shits. Eventually, we found out that wasn't living under there. When the woman who has a restraining order on him caught him sneaking into the property and called the police, who then arrested him for stealing construction equipment. Yeah, so he wasn't down the entire time, but he was still down, right? Down to dismantle the means of production, right? Down to take a fall for the rest of us. Down to stand up to the boys. It's a depressing hero. I can admit that. But hey, why would I expect a first-tier hero in a second-tier city? Anyway, maybe it's not the city itself that's second tier. Maybe it's the people. Not all of them. Just the ones who aren't down. Just not Bucket and Ham. Cool, thanks.